Zulema Pastenes.
Before we get started here, I'll first advise you, Ms. Pastenes, to please make verbal responses to any questions so that we can keep a clear record. Please try to avoid speaking at the same time as anyone that's questioning you. And then I did want to inquire as to whether or not you have watched any of the testimony of this trial, either at a viewing location or in court or on the news or on the internet or anywhere.
No, sir.
You have not watched anything?
No.
Okay, thank you for that. With that in mind, then, Ms. Smith, you can inquire.
Please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name.
My name is Zulema Pastenes. Pastenes.
Okay. Ma'am, where do you live?
In Gilbert, Arizona.
Okay. Do you have any family?
Yes, I have 3 children.
Okay. And do you know someone by the name of Lori Vallow, now Lori Vallow Daybell?
Yes.
Okay. How do you know that person?
I met her in 2018.
Okay. What time of year was it?
Fall.
Okay. Early fall, late fall, before Halloween or after Halloween?
Early fall.
Okay. Where did you meet her?
I met her at Melanie Gibbs' house. Melanie was having some meetings at her house, and she invited me to come and see Lori speak at that meeting.
Okay. And where was Melanie Gibbs' home at that time?
In Gilbert, Arizona, very near my house.
How did you know Melanie Gibb?
I met her when I moved into the ward where she lived at.
Okay. And when you say the ward she lived at, are you talking a ward in the Church of the Latter-day Saints?
Yes, it's the boundary, the church boundaries.
Okay. And did you begin to attend services in that ward?
Correct.
Okay. So you went to Ms. Gibbs' house, and did you see the defendant there?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that first meeting. What happened during that first meeting?
Lori was speaking, and during this meeting, she was giving a testimony that she had had visitations of angels, and that she had visitations of the angel Moroni that was giving her instructions, and that she was a personal witness of Jesus Christ.
Okay, let me ask you a couple quick questions. When you say she was giving testimony of the visitation from angels, and specifically the angel Moroni, what did that mean to you?
When someone is getting such visitations from a heavenly being, it would mean that this person has a very high spiritual standing, someone who is very righteous, and is just because above, spiritually above other people.
So during Ms. Vallow's testimony at the group at Ms. Gibbs' home, did you hear anything else? I thought you said something about a witness to Jesus or Jesus Christ.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So that would mean that you actually have a personal conversation, physical conversation with Jesus Christ.
Okay. And what significance did that have to you?
That would be the highest spiritual experience that any human being can have.
Okay. Did she say anything else at this first meeting at Ms. Gibbs' home?
She spoke that there were angels that were putting names in the computer for her to do family work in the temple for them.
All right. At this meeting, did you believe her?
Yes.
Okay. And after the meeting, did you proceed to speak with her again?
Yes.
How did that happen?
I got her phone number, and then after that, we took a trip to St. George to go to a conference together.
Okay. So between the time you met at Melanie Gibbs' house and the time you went to, did I hear St. George?
Correct.
And is St. George in Utah?
Yes.
Okay. So between those two time periods, did you have any communication with Ms. Vallow? How'd you set up the trip to St. George?
Through text and calls.
Okay. During the text and the calls, did you begin a friendship with Ms. Vallow?
I think it was an acquaintance at the beginning, and then during the trip to St. George, we drove there and we sat next to each other, and that's when we started talking, and that's where our friendship developed.
Okay. And tell us about the conference at St. George. What was that?
It was a Preparing a People conference.
Okay. And what's a Preparing a People conference?
It's conferences where they teach you how to be better prepared for anything that may happen, like a disaster, but as well as preparing you for the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Okay. And so you went to a Preparing the People conference in St. George, Utah.
Correct.
Okay. And while you guys were in the car, you guys developed you became closer and learned a lot about each other.
Correct.
All right. At the St. George conference in Utah, did you meet anybody you already had known?
Yes. Chad Daybell was there.
Okay. And how had you known Chad Daybell?
There was another Preparing a People conference in Mesa, Arizona in July of 2018, and I had briefly met him there while I purchased a couple of his books.
Okay. So then you saw him again at the St. George Preparing a People conference.
Correct.
All right. And were you aware of whether Ms. Vallow knew Mr. Daybell prior to that St. George conference?
As far as I know, she did not know him until then.
Okay. So were you present when they met?
Yes.
Okay. And during that conference, how did the conference proceed for you?
I listened to a lot of the speakers. I looked at some of the table presentations, and I spoke to Chad a couple times as well.
All right. So, was Ms. Vallow with you the entire time after she met Chad Daybell?
No, she spent a lot of time at Chad's table.
And you were able to observe them together?
Yes, they were talking with each other, and
when you say talking, how did they seem to interact based on your observations?
at first it was just regular talking, and then it was obvious that Lori was very flirtatious towards him, very giggly, and putting on the moves on him.
Okay. Did you see any interactions about his books with Ms. Daybell or Ms. Vallow at that point?
She said she was going to stay at his table until she was going to sell all his books for him.
And based on your observations, did she stay at his table a lot?
Yes.
Okay. How did the conference end?
We helped Chad pack up his table, and I think he only had perhaps maybe one box left of books. He has sold the rest, and we helped him put all his stuff in his car, and then he left, and then we went to the house where we were staying at.
When you say we, who was in the car?
It was Melanie Gibb, Lori, two other ladies that were the ones that were driving, and I.
Okay. Was Ms. Vallow in the car?
With us, yes.
Okay. Now, during that ride back from Utah to Arizona, were there any conversations with the defendant?
Yes, Lori was driving, and she, Melanie Gibb and I were in the back seat, and she wanted us to look at certain scriptures, and then to search the scriptures for who James the Less was.
Okay. And did you, who was James the Less?
He was one of the apostles when Jesus Christ was on the earth.
Okay. Why did she want you to look up who James the Less was?
At the time, I didn't know why she was asking us to do this, but later on I found out that Chad had shared with her that in a previous life, him and, meaning Chad and Lori, had been married to each other, and during that time he had been James the Less, and she was his wife, and I believe her name was Elena at the time.
Okay. So that was in a previous life. Make sure I understand. You learned from Ms. Vallow that she had been told in a previous life, Chad was James the Less.
Correct.
And she was his wife, Elena.
Correct.
Okay. But at the car in the car ride back from Utah to Arizona, she just had you looking up James the Less.
Correct.
All right. You said she had you looking up other scriptures or principles. What others did she have you looking up?
She had us look up Doctrine and Covenants 7711, which speaks about the angel that is going to gather and set apart the 144,000.
144,000?
Yes.
Okay. And I said, what did you say that passage was? I want to make sure I have it correct.
Doctrine and Covenants 7711.
Okay. And that was a passage about the angel who is going to establish the 144,000 in the last days. Do I have that? Okay. And prior to this conversation in the car where she's asking you to look this passage up, in the text or conversations you'd had with her, had she mentioned the Doctrine and Covenants 7711?
No.
Okay. Did she tell you why during this trip she wanted you to look at 7711?
No.
Okay. Did you look it up for her?
Yes.
Okay. Did you read it and discuss it?
Just read it, no discussion.
Okay. Did you talk about any other passages that you can remember in that car ride?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, at the conference, were there any photographs taken?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to hand to the witness, and I apologize on the exhibit list. I decided to split the two exhibits up. The exhibit list we sent out earlier has this all lumped into 52. We have an updated exhibit list printing for the court, but the exhibit list it states exhibits 53A, 53B, and 53C, copies of which have been given to both counsel and provided to the court. And I apologize. We'll get you an updated exhibit list, Judge. I meant to do that at the break, and it got away from me. Thank you.
And Judge, this may be a good time to bring up the fact that we have asked for an exhibit list, and the court has also inquired about the exhibit list, and we have not yet received it from, I know the court brought that up a couple days ago.
I'm sorry, counsel. You don't have an exhibit list from us? You've
I have
been
one
given
that has
one.
up to...
May we approach, Judge? Because that's... Okay, because that's just not true. Okay. May the witness be given those exhibits? Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Take a look at each of those, please. Okay. Did you look at each of them? We need to hear you.
Yes.
Okay. What are States Exhibit 53A, 53B, and 53C as a group?
These are pictures that were taken at Preparing the People conferences.
In which Preparing the People conference?
The first two are from the Preparing the People in St. George. And I believe the third one was taken at the Preparing the People in Boise.
Okay. Which you attended?
Correct.
Okay. And do each of those, and there's water available if you need it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are each of those fair and accurate pictures of people who attended the Preparing a People conference, conferences that you've mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. And do they reflect individuals that you've testified about today?
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe it misstates her testimony. She said that she was at a St. George conference, and then she's testifying that these photographs were taken in Boise, which would be a different location.
If I may clean it up, Judge?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just for now, which ones are the Preparing a People conference in St. George? Look at the sticker on the back, and if you can give us those numbers.
53C and 53A are from St. George. 53B is from Boise.
Okay. Let's put aside 53B for a minute, and then we'll talk about 53A and C. Do each of those pictures reflect the people who attended and were with you at the St. George conference of Preparing a People in the fall of 2018?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to move for the admission of 53A and 53C.
No objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
A diagram and showed how people progress towards lightness or towards darkness.
Okay. And did she say how she knew this stuff? How did she know about light and dark? Or did she tell you at that lunch?
I don't believe that she said how she was finding this information. I guess just assumed that it was coming from Chad, since he was the one that had given me my rating, or I don't even know what to call it. It's like rating of light or dark.
Is it kind of like a scale?
Yeah, like a scale, yes.
Okay. And he had previously given your rating on the light scale or on the dark scale?
Correct.
Okay. And then you were hearing similar things at this lunch with Lori?
Correct.
Who was at the lunch?
It was Lori, Val, Melanie Gibb, and I.
Okay. And forgive me, did she put you on the light scale or the dark scale? I don't remember.
And the light scale.
Okay. And were there sort of levels of light or levels in dark on each scale?
Yes.
Okay. What was your level, if you remember? Were you high or low?
4.2 or something like that.
Okay.
I think
was that a high number or a low number?
It was fairly high.
Okay. Did she tell you where she was on the scale?
Yes, I believe that she said she was at 4.3.
Okay. And so during this lunch at Firebirds, did she talk about anything, any other ideas involving light or dark or spirits?
During this lunch, she said that Charles Vala, her husband, had been possessed by a dark spirit or demon.
And was she able to identify for you the name of that demon or dark spirit?
Yes, I believe that she named him Garrett.
Okay. And did she talk anything about, helping Charles at all with this situation?
She expressed how different he was. He was acting different. He was more organized than he was before. That he was a completely different person. That he even looked like he was shorter than he was before. That this evil spirit had been following him for a couple of years so that he could learn everything about him, and that now had possessed him.
Okay. Now, was this near the time that you had, before Christmas or after Christmas?
After Christmas.
Okay. Was it winter out or spring out?
I believe this was around February.
Of 2019 now?
2019.
Okay. And why do you think it was February of 2019?
If I remember correctly, that's what, there was a receipt from that lunch, and I kept the receipt because that's where Lori had made the diagram, and I had taken it home with me, and if I'm not mistaken, that's what the date on that receipt says.
Okay. So, and we'll get the copies of the receipt in a little bit. Let's get through testimony, and then we'll do evidence, okay?
Okay.
All right, because you took that receipt and turned it over to law enforcement?
Correct.
Okay. So, February of 2019, it's at that lunch, and she's talking to you about light and dark. Is that right?
Yes.
She's talking to you about the demon in Charles.
Yes.
Prior to this time, had she talked to you about any concerns or problems she had with Charles or in her marriage?
When we were at the Preparing of People in St. George, she had expressed that she had, that her and Charles were having some financial difficulties. And at that time, while we were there, she said that she had been the beneficiary of Joseph Ryan's life insurance. That was one of her prior husbands, and that she had received, I believe it was $60,000 from that life insurance.
Okay. And Mr. Ryan, was he the father of Tylee?
Correct.
Okay.
Your Honor, I think we're getting into impermissible testimony regarding 404B. I think we talked about that.
I'm not going there, Judge.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going
I'll
there.
withdraw the objection.
I'm not going there. Did she say do you need a minute? I see you with a tissue.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Do you need a minute or are you okay?
Can I take just a second?
Sure.
Thank you.